So, if you could please go over what happened to you recently with the mountain lion encounter we had while hunting, please.
Yeah, it was November 10th. You and I had gone hunting into the Clearwater National Forest, which is kind of northeast of Potlatch, Idaho. And we went into an area that we have scouted out quite a bit. You went kind of a different direction, and I went down into this area that I had been looking at. And it's a pretty neat area. A lot of trees, and I've seen a lot of deer activity in there. But it was a pretty quiet morning. It was really cold. There was not really a close to the ground fog, but it was up, I don't know, 50 to 100 feet. It was a pretty heavy cloud layer. So it was cold and damp and not much activity. It was really quiet. And after sitting in a spot watching an area, I decided to go down to another lower area where there's a small pond. Kind of check out to see if there was any tracks or anything. And when I got down there, noticed a few deer tracks, and so I decided to sit and watch that area for a little bit. And I found myself a nice comfortable log where I could sit, and it was kind of on an overhang, so my feet were kind of dangling, touching the ground just a little bit. It was pretty comfortable. And I was watching, the pond has a creek that goes through it, and it goes up the hill, and I was sitting looking in that direction to kind of see if there was anything that would come down from the tree line into my shooting area. And I decided to start using some deer calls to see if I could bring anything in, and I first started using a buck grunt and didn't get any response. So then I switched to the doe call, and I started making some doe calls. And it had probably been a good 30 minutes that I was sitting in this spot. And like I said, I was kind of looking in this direction, watching an area where I was anticipating a deer to come into the view, because I'd come down from behind over here. There was a pond behind me. And so that's the area I was focused on. And for whatever reason, I felt the need to turn and look to my left. And as soon as I did so, I noticed a cougar that was no more than about 20 feet away from me, doing a low crawl and step over a log that was there on the ground. And all I remember seeing is his face, and his eyes were just pitch black. And he was focused right at me. And he was, I have no doubt, a step or two away from doing the cougar leap onto me to attack me as prey.
Would you say that this animal, just the feeling that you had, did it feel like it was viewing you as prey, or do you feel like it viewed you as another predator? Because according to one calling book, when they hear distress sounds or the sounds of a prey animal, they tend to enter the situation thinking another predator is at play and want to either steal the prey from that predator or try to run the predator out. When it was looking at you, did you feel like it was going to attack you because it felt like you were competition, or did you have the distinct feeling like you were prey?
I had the distinct impression I was prey. I've had domestic cats as pets, and I know too when a cat, when you play with a cat with any kind of object or whichever, their eyes will dilate right an instant before they're going to attack. It's one of the neat things. You can always watch the cat as you make a play, and their eyes will go all of a sudden to dilation, and then they strike. It's a unique cat feature. And when I looked at that cat, that cougar coming right at me, like I said, all I saw was a black. So his eyes were fully dilated, and he was doing a low crawl. So he was doing the skulk, which cats will do when they're getting ready to attack. And, he was being very deliberate as to where he was putting his paw. I remember him lifting it up and coming over. And so there was no doubt in my mind I was prey.
Now, how close did you say you were to this cat?
It was 20 feet or less. We didn't have a tape measure when everything was over and done with to make an accurate measurement, but Having estimated distances in the past, it was no more than 20 feet away. In here. But as I was sitting there, I just, for whatever reason, glanced to my left, and the mountain lion was coming over this log, and he was stepping over, and he was looking directly at me in a stock pose, down low, creeping over. I had no doubt in my mind, because of the way he was looking directly at me, I was his target, and he was no more than 25 feet away from me. I'm guessing another couple of steps and he'd have jumped.
What was going through your mind when you first saw that?
Oh crap. Actually, I really didn't have too much of a thought past that. It was just instinct. I raised my rifle, shot, and I had a bolt-action rifle. I fired off 3 rounds in quick succession. And I know I hit him because he had now turned away from me, and he was dragging his hindquarters. And I watched as he was obviously trying to get away using only his front paws because his rear were no longer working, and I could see a pretty obvious flesh wound on him. And that's when I drew down on him. It would have been on his back, and I fired my last shot and put him down.
So how big do you think this cat was, and how old do you think he was?
He wasn't a huge cat, but obviously I didn't recognize the size until I was able to look at him later, after he was dead. But he was a pretty good sized cat. His paws were about the size of my hand, and he probably, after us lugging him out, was somewhere 100 plus pounds. We didn't have a scale or anything. When he was, this was, like I said, down in a holler area, and my ATV would have been way up here, a good quarter mile plus away. And my final shot to put him down blew out all his guts and his intestines. I gutted him to help us carry him out of there, to lighten the load, so to speak, and plus prevent things from dragging on the ground.
So when it came to fishing game, how was their response? And was the dealing with it comfortable? Did you feel like they were accusatorial with you? What was your interaction with them like?
It actually was a really good experience. I didn't have a cougar tag. I knew that if I tried to keep the cat, it'd be the one time Fish and Game would have probably stopped us and we'd have been in trouble. So I tried to get a hold of Fish and Game, but because it was a holiday, it was Veterans Day, their main office was closed. So I called the local sheriff's department and Lake County Sheriff's Department, and they got a hold of a Fish and Game officer and gave them my number, and then he called me a short time later and basically just asked me what happened and asked me if I was done hunting for the day, and I said, oh yeah, we're done. And he said, okay, well, if you wouldn't mind, I'm technically on my day off. Would you bring the cougar to my home? And I'll take possession of it since you don't have a tag. And I was like, okay. So he texted me his address, and after we got the cougar loaded up on the ATV and brought it back to our vehicle, and we took it to his house, which was really nice. And we had a nice meeting with him afterwards at his house and talked with him pretty good. And it just, I expected to have to write out statements and, get the 5th degree, and it was none of that.
I was there, I can attest.
Yeah.
Have there ever been any other scary encounters or situations that could have gone awry that you've gone through when out hunting in the past?
Yeah, I've got, this is my 3rd now. The 2 previous ones, one would have been in the late 80s. My parents had a cabin in Northern California, just outside Lewiston, California. And I decided to go bow hunting. And my parents' cabin was kind of in a valley area, and I decided to walk up the hill to get to a logging road that went through the timbered area above the cabin. And instead of taking any kind of pathway, I decided just to kind of walk up the hill. And I'd gotten about halfway up, and for whatever reason, of course, you're trying to figure out your way through, and you're looking, and you're trying not to make that much noise. But for whatever reason, I really had focused down on the ground, and I came within, 3 or 4 inches of putting my foot on a coiled up rattlesnake. Now, that snake was not alert. He was not rattling. He appeared to be asleep. But I came that close to putting my foot on him. And I have no idea what would have happened had I put my foot down, because I probably would have put it down on his head because of the way he was coiled up. But I backed up and I shot it with my bow and arrow. And I probably shouldn't have done that, but on the other hand, I was so freaked out by almost stepping on him that was my first reaction is, you know. And I got him right in the head and split his head in two. And so that ended that issue.
And I take it you did not try and eat the rattlesnake out?
No, I didn't even think about eating it. I just was able to use the broadhead and cut the head off and bury it. And then I cut off the rattle, and I still have that today.
Now, I remember hearing you talk about having an experience with a black bear in the same general location. Is that right? Yeah. It would have been a year or two later.
This time I was carrying my rifle. At that time it was only a .243, and in a spot that was kind of up and above my parents' cabin. It was kind of a U-shape, horseshoe-type curve in the logging road. And on this side over here, there was a nice maple tree that was overhanging the road, and the road kind of just gently sloped up. So I thought that was a great spot to sit, and I could lean back, and I could watch a hillside in the other side of the road as it came around. And I was just kind of sitting there. I brought a book with me, and I was just sitting there kind of reading. And of course, I was sitting on the ground with the tree above me in a wide, flat road all the way around. So there wasn't any real safe spot to go to. And as I was sitting there, next thing I started hearing was this kind of crashing sound, something walking through the brush. And I looked over, and it was only about 50 feet to the other side of the road. And out of the bush stepped a big black bear. And I knew that there was a bear in the area, a boar specifically, because I had walked a number of the logging roads, and I'd seen where the trees that were anywhere from 7 to 8 feet tall were snapped off. And that's apparently a sign of a boar, male bear, marking their territory. Well, they'll go along and snap the tops of the trees. So I knew there was one in the area. Well, this guy came into view, and he had to be 300 to 400 pounds. He was a big boy. And here I am, 50 feet away from this boar, who appeared to be, was going to walk and come real close to me. And I knew I was dead to rights if I tried to run. I had no tree to climb because I was sitting on the ground. And so what I did is I fired a shot over his back, and he took off running, and I kept firing in his general direction to keep him moving. But I tell you what, that was pretty scary at that point, because I knew that there was nowhere I was going to go if that bear charged me. He had no clue I was there, which was the good point. So when I fired off that round, it scared him.
Have these experiences left an impact on you, especially this last one, and caused you to change any of the tactics that you use when out hunting, or how you approach calling in animals? Is there anything that you've learned from this experience that you want to apply down the road?
I didn't really realize it when I started calling the deer, But as you can see, this is the jacket that I was wearing. I do have on my Blaze orange, but it was zipped up underneath this because it was really, like I said, really cold, really damp, and I needed this extra jacket to stay warm, and so I had no, except for maybe what is showing up here at the back, and my yellow hat here, and these are the pants that I was wearing. If you notice, they're the combination, it's kind of a deer color, and I never even thought about it, you know, because I've been in the woods for a good 40 plus years. I've never even seen a cougar, never even thought that a cougar would stalk me, but because I was making the deer sounds and my camo is the same color as the deer, I can see where that cougar thought, lunch.
Is there any advice you have for people when they're trying to call in animals, trying to do hunting, as far as keeping an eye on your surroundings or anything that goes like that?
Keep your head on a swivel, especially where I was, you know, I was sitting on a log, but basically ground level. And so you're easily, you know, can be attacked if you're down there, whether it was that black bear or the cougar. You got no place really to go, because if an animal decides to charge you, you've got no tree or anything else to really climb at that point to protect you. And so keep your head on a swivel. You know, I was just so focused on looking at this area, I never even thought about, you know, I'm calling in something that might be sneaking up behind me or side me. And it was just, I don't know, somebody looking out for me to make me go, maybe my sixth sense picked up the fact that he was staring so intently at me or whatever. But that's, whatever it was, made me realize to look to my left out of my normal field of view to see that cougar coming at me.
Now, I meant to ask this earlier, but I kind of forgot. As far as the mountain lion himself went, did he look like he was a really healthy cat? Did he look like he was in a bad way? Was there anything to indicate what his condition was physically?
Fur-wise, he seemed to be in good condition. The only thing that we noticed when we kind of examined him is he did have a couple of porcupine quills embedded in his face, but not enough, I think, that actually impacted his ability to eat. But when I, you know, finished the gutting process, I removed the stomach, and it was completely empty except for fur and small bone chips. So he was obviously very hungry. And in looking at him, there wasn't much fat on him either. So it had been a while since he'd had a good meal. So that was probably another factor in why he was so willing to go after me.
All right. Well, thank you for doing this interview with us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So, guys, please stay safe out there. Keep an eye on your surroundings. And please join the Jep's Outdoor Adventures newsletter, so that way you can get notified every time I come out with a new video. It is an email newsletter, so you just put your email in, and I will just upload posts letting people know that there's a new video. And I will try to include hyperlinks to the video itself. We'll see how that goes, because sometimes technology is difficult to figure out. But that way, we can kind of bypass YouTube. YouTube has been shadow banning a lot of channels. I believe mine is one of them, because some of my videos deserve a lot more views than they get, and they don't see why they aren't being picked up by YouTube's algorithms unless they are purposefully being ignored, and that just hurts. But I know I've had people subscribe to my channel, and they've told me they never got a notification for my videos. So that's just not acceptable. You will find that my emails will be put into the spam folder from time to time, so if you check that regularly, that's a good idea. You should anyway, because you never know what email will throw into the spam folder. It's annoying, but it is what it is. But if you guys keep an eye on that, if you put your email into the newsletter, you will be notified every time I come out with a new video for Jep's Outdoor Adventures. And I am planning on using another YouTube channel name to upload some videos, Stories, Tales, and Wild Yarns. That way I do the Russell Annabelle and Theodore Roosevelt type hunting stories, and I can post them to a channel that is geared towards that topic, because I've tried posting them here and I don't get a lot of views, and I figure I put enough work into those videos. I know people are going to want to watch them. Hopefully
if people watch my channel just for that, YouTube's algorithms will pick them up and share them with people a little bit more eagerly. It seems like if you make one type of content that does well, YouTube will not recommend your other types of content to the people who watch this type of content. I don't get it, but it is what it is. But if you could please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click that share button down below, copy the link and share it so YouTube knows that you are sharing my video. That would be fantastic. Please spread awareness. Keeping safe out in the woods is very important. And yeah, I guess I'll see you guys soon. Bye.